Good afternoon, Tony Dottino, founder of the USA Memory Championship and president of Dottino Consulting Group, doing my Live with Tony on Friday, June the 30th. Another month has kind of whizzed by. And in the course of the month, we've been doing a special summer session for brain fitness in a workshop that we're doing at a local YMCA. And one of the things that we did today, which was just fantastic, I'll share the story with you, was something I call about socialization, which is another way of saying how do you get people to socialize with somebody they've never met before, they don't know, they've seen walking on the street. And they just look like an interesting person that's safe and not intrusive. And how do you do that? And why I find this to be so important for people in our workshop comes from an article in the current issue of Saturday Evening Post. I read this to them today. I read the participants this article today. First of all, they said, gee, we didn't even know that the Saturday Evening Post is still published. And this comes from the July-August 2023 issue. And what it says, which is startling to me, is we are now in a loneliness epidemic. Even before the pandemic, loneliness was rising. About 1 in 2 adults in America reported experiencing feelings of loneliness and isolation, according to an advisory. The pandemic and actions taken to prevent the spread of the virus only exacerbated the feelings of being alone and or isolated. What this went on to say, which is startling to me, is loneliness poses a health risk as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day and leads to physical and mental conditions such as high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, a weakened immune system, depression, cognitive decline, and Alzheimer's disease. I'm like, whoa, this is just too much. So during our workshop, we're teaching the people that are part of the brain fitness workshop, how do you go about socializing to where it's safe and it's pleasant and you learn things. So today we were fortunate. One of our members had a friend, his name was Joe, who came into the workshop to just see what it was like. And to see, it turns out Joe was 86 years old. And so what we do, or what I do as the facilitator of it, is okay, welcome Joe. So we know your name, at least on a first name basis. But now we're going to ask you to sit in front of the room. We'll give you a chair, and you can listen to the room a little bit. And so he sits for about a half an hour, and he just gets a flavor of the room and builds up a little bit of his comfort in being in a room of 17 strangers, if we may. And so Joe sat in a chair, and we said, okay, we're done with some of the pre-exercises we do. And now it was time to practice our socialization skills. And what I say to people is, first of all, take a look at him. Does he look like a safe person? Does he look like somebody who's not going to hit us or rob us or do something terrible to us? And we may look at him and say, would he be safe for somebody to engage in conversation with? And if he is, what would be some of the questions that you would want to ask him? And so the first question is, obviously, what is the person's name? Well, we knew it was Joe, so we introduced him as he came into the room. But where did he grow up? Where was he from? Like what country or city? Where is he from? And we're in Florida, and lots of people don't come from Florida. So the first question was, where is he from? Where was he born? Where was he from, meaning was he someplace else in the United States? And where does he live now? And what does he do? And so it was a whole series of questions. And we just, the first question alone is the one that just, whoa, just took this to a whole different stage of places, which was just amazing. And a group of people just were so engaged, it was like mesmerizing. So what was the big question that started it off? Well, the first question he had was he had a T-shirt on, and his T-shirt had Morocco. So, of course, he's got a T-shirt on with Morocco, and that opened up the first question of the day is, why a T-shirt from Morocco? And his answer was fascinating. Well, Joe responded, I've never been to Morocco, but I got this T-shirt from Disney's Epcot. And I asked Joe and somebody else, well, why did you buy a T-shirt from Morocco? And he said, I didn't buy this T-shirt from Morocco. I was at Disneyland and I was over at Epcot, and I went over to the pavilion from Morocco, and the belly dancer invited me to dance with her and do a belly dance. And so I got up and did a belly dance with the belly dancer in Morocco. And was finished, she gave me a T-shirt from Morocco. So that's where I got this T-shirt. Somebody said, hey, can you get up and show us a little bit of what your moves were? And he said, no, I've got a little bit of a problem with my hip and I'm not moving as well, which then said, when was the last time you went and did your belly dance? And he said, it was about 2 years ago. It was the last time I was at Epcot. And with my hip bothering me, I don't get around as much. So then that fun conversation just from the question about a T-shirt. So, hey, what have you been to Morocco? Did you get that T-shirt from Morocco? And you find out that he's been practicing, getting belly dancing and getting a T-shirt from Morocco. Which then said, well, Benji, if you've never been to Morocco, where are you from? And his answer was just so amazing. He was from Hungary. And he was born in Hungary in 1939, and he started talking about, as World War II came about, how as little kids they would lay on the dirt or lay on the street or lay in a grass field, and they would look at the planes above and watch the jets, or not the jets, but the fighter planes from the U.S. with the Russians engage, what that was, the Germans and the planes and the fights. He just elaborated on a story of what it was like growing up in Hungary during World War II and watching American pilots and how they would maneuver with the German planes, and how one day they watched the German plane shoot down an American plane, and the pilot ejected the American plane and came down, and they got these kids ran over to the area where the pilot landed, and the German soldiers were there, and eventually, unfortunately, killed this American pilot. And then from there, he talked about they had to get out of Hungary, and they moved to Austria for safe bearings. And then from Austria, eventually got through to the United States. And as he just told this story, from people were asking him questions about what that was like as a little kid, what it was like for him to come to the United States, and the blessings and gifts that he's got. And it was just, whoa, one question led to another, and Joe was there talking to us for half an hour, and I think he could have spent the whole day. And as one person well put it, I sit and watch TV and watch these kinds of programs. This is like watching a TV program that actually is alive, and you get to meet the person that's on the TV program telling this history story about their life and what it was like to go from one war-torn country to another, and we had to stop at 30 minutes and invite Joe to come back and share with us a second ago. He lives close by, so he lives close by to where we conduct the city. He walks dogs. He's 86 years old, and one of the things he does is he walks 3 animals every day and feeds them. They're homeless, so these are dogs that are homeless, and he walks them. And somebody asked him, well, why don't you find a home for them? And he's like, I'm happy. It gives me something to do, and going out and walking the dogs. And from there, he talked about, I come to the gym 3 times a week, and I work out here at the Y, and I'm 86 years old, and so I got to keep working. And somebody said, well, what ever got you to come to this workshop? And he said, well, I know Catherine, who was one of the facilitators, and She's told me as I'm in the Y, if I ever want to stop in and just see what it was like, just stop in. So I came in to stop in and see what it was like. And this has been great. And I really enjoyed sharing the story and telling you about my experience. And boy, I could talk to you collectively, 17 people in the room. I could talk to you all day. So what we obviously wanted to do is we had a couple of mental challenge exercises. So he took a half an hour, and people they were mesmerized. They could just see his life and feel it and have a conversation about, wow, what a difference this, all from a Morocco t-shirt and belly dancing in Epcot, and what a difference he made to the impact of the people. And when I asked them for their thoughts after it, I mean, they were just all just blown away by this man that grew up in Hungary and was right underneath the battles of World War II, and his remembrances of it and the blessings he had by eventually coming over to Newark in the United States when our embassies and things got people to leave Europe during the war, and how he wound up at Newark Airport for his first part of being in the United States. So what we did is I asked Joe if he'd be willing to come back another day and take up another half an hour and let people ask him further questions and have some dialogue. Now, what's the point of exercise? When you meet people, it's okay if you look at them and they seem like safe people. And you want to build your socialization skills. We want to make connections. We want to have relationships. And when Joe comes back the next time, he'll be a friend. It's somebody we already have some basis of understanding who he is and what his life was, and we can pick that up and just build a connection and build a relationship and a friendship to it, so that we're not faced with the fact of an epidemic of loneliness. If people just only learned what some of the simple questions they could ask somebody, just looking at them in just a t-shirt. And so I'll close by saying, as I walked out of the Y and was going over to my car, there was a woman that was going by, and I asked her, were you going to be celebrating the 4th of July? And she said, no, I already celebrated on June the 19th, and I had 50 family members. We all met in Birmingham, Alabama, and that's where we got together to renew our traditions and our family histories and things in Birmingham, Alabama on June the 19th. At which point she said, and what are you doing here? And I told her what I was doing in the Y at this Brain Fitness. And she said, you do look familiar. I think you did a session for us over at Summerport in the community center. And you talked to us about the brain, and I found that extremely interesting. They should bring you back again. And that was my visit to my car, to her car, and back into doing my Live with Tony on Friday, June the 30th. So you do an exercise where you meet someone at a shopping store or a cashier or a clerk, and just look at something about them and just ask them a simple question about a t-shirt or oh, I love your hair, I love your glasses, I just, you look like you're so happy today. And just engage in a conversation and see where it takes you. Have a great weekend. I do plan to be back on Monday.